All right, so welcome back. Today I've got a real quick follow-up on the review I did of the brand new full Old Testament and New Testament Legacy Standard Translation from Steadfast. This is the Italian Cowhide paste down. I showed you a review of the red and the blue, and you'll find that on the on another video on my channel. But today I want to follow up on a couple of points I made, scriptural points about this translation, just to give you an idea of something I was talking about. Now, I'll just go over a few quick verses and give you an assessment of my experience, kind of overall, or general experience over the last few months of using the Legacy Standard every single day, along with the NASB 95. Now, I know enough now that I will not stop using the 95 or phase out the NASB 95s that I have, though this Legacy Standard is my main translation now, which is what I got this for. I started off with the New Testament Psalms and Proverbs. After a few months, I really started to like some of the really accurate things that they did, and some of the ways that they had changed the wording of certain things. It's mostly subtle, but they're important. And as I was saying in the video, in the review video of these, is that there's one thing I noticed, and I'm not a Greek or Hebrew scholar. I don't know how to read Greek or Hebrew, but I have to usually look it up. And when I do, I start to see little similarities and patterns. And one of the reasons why I like to use different translations, mainly the King James, which is what I'd always used and am most comfortable with, I suppose. The NKJV, which incorporates some stuff that's been discovered in newer manuscripts in the caves of Qumran, and so on. And there are certain advantages to that. I like to use the Amplified Bible. Now, I find the Amplified Bible to be pretty much in league with the NASB. For whatever reason, I don't understand why they don't make better prints of that book. I think the only ones who make it are Zondervan or Holman. I don't remember who makes it, but I think it's Zondervan. But it's a really accurate translation. It's on level with NASB. More accurate, perhaps, than even the King James. So the Amplified is a really good version. Plus, it has the built-in comments with built-in nuances and things that tell you, give you more insight into the different shades. But the point is that these translations give you a different shade of meaning, because words have different meaning now than they did in their time. And sometimes an English word doesn't fully convey the Greek meaning. So the different translations can kind of convey different shades. I always stick to the most accurate, but to help get a broader understanding of the whatever verse I'm reading, I'll use different translations to try and get a better grasp on it. So anyway, let me go ahead and get here to the book of James. First of all, let's take a look over here at James 9 and 10, okay? Now, I'm going to read it to you here, but the brother of humble circumstances is to boast in his high position, and the rich man is to boast in his humiliation. Now, that's the Legacy Standard text. Now, let's take a look over here at the NASB 95. This is the Cambridge Clarion. Okay. And if we look at James 1, 9, and 10, but the brother of humble circumstances is to glory in his high position, and the rich man is to glory in his humiliation. Now, what we have here, in my opinion, okay, is two different shades of the same meaning. Both glory and boast can both define something that's connected to pride or too much pride of some kind, right? But glory kind of conveys an honor, whereas boasting kind of conveys a prideful expression, okay? So if you go back and you read, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the reason for this is if you go back and you read other epistles from Paul, and if you read the way that James writes throughout his book, right, you'll notice that there's kind of a sort of consistency in how certain terms are used. Of course, a biblical scholar would be able to articulate this way better than I can, of course, but I think there's kind of a way that this word is being used in its context that kind of leans to more towards the word boast rather than glory. However, can you swap them and not have any misunderstanding of the meaning? In this case, of course, it's perfectly fine. It's really makes no difference, right? So now, before I explain to you what this means, let me go ahead and show you the next verse here. We'll just jump down to James 2 and go to verse 4. So James 2 verse 4 says, in the Legacy Standard Translation, have you not made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Okay. Now, if you look at James 2, 4, and the NASB. Sorry, I'm wearing my new contacts here, so I'm having a little trouble focusing. Okay. Have you not made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil motives? So if we look at here, it has the number 1 over here. So if we look at 4, literal meaning is reasonings. So when you look at this here, it says thoughts, and this says motives. And when you look at the footnote, it says reasonings. Reasonings is more in line with thoughts. Now, where this shows a little bit more accuracy, in my opinion, okay, is that the word thoughts doesn't necessarily have to convey a motive. A motive is more of like a judgment being made. Whereas where thoughts convey more of a meaning of the thoughts you have about someone. So let's say the attitude towards the poor man and towards the rich man. If you take the word motives, it may lend to the understanding that the person gave the rich man a better seat because he might have something to gain by being the friend of someone rich, perhaps, as a motive to gain something of benefit from doing nice things for the rich man, right? Whereas if you take the word thoughts, then this may convey evil thoughts is compared to evil motives. This could kind of mean both things. Greedy thoughts are evil, but also evil thoughts towards a poor person, like perhaps your prejudice towards poor people. So, as far as I can tell from studying the meanings of these verses, evil thoughts is a little bit more accurate. Like I said, this is a real small nuance, okay? But when you're trying to garner the meaning out of it, and you see motives, and then you see thoughts, I would say that this kind of leaves a little bit wider interpretation, or not really lead you into the interpretation of being favoring the rich man for personal benefit, whereas motives kind of gives that impression, right? And it doesn't really lend to the aspect of having evil thoughts towards a poor person, rather than just relegating them to a lower seat because they're not going to benefit you as much. So this word to me is a more accurate. I mean, they're both very accurate. Does it really matter? I really don't think so, because it doesn't change the context of this verse or anything, but it's just a really small kind of it's just a nuance that where you want a real accurate understanding. This is kind of, it gives you an idea of just how hard they worked to let the original text, the original manuscripts, kind of speak cleanly. That's my opinion on that. So now keep in mind what I said earlier, because what I said earlier was that my general experience, my overall experience going between the NASB 95 and the Legacy Standard for a few months, every single day, studying, I find mostly really subtle little things like that may be of no consequence for the most part, right? But just little subtle things that can give you a little bit better understanding. So let me go ahead and go to another thing to show you. This is in 1 Corinthians 10. So I'll go ahead and flip over here and the NASB 95. So let's go ahead and read from 1 Corinthians 10. So if we go to 1 Corinthians 10, 5, okay? 1 Corinthians 10, verse 5. It says, "Nevertheless, with most of them, God was not well pleased, for they were struck down in the wilderness." Now see the capitalization here? That's when it quotes, when the New Testament is quoting from the Old Testament. Now, if you look at the NASB 95, here's chapter 10, verse 4. "And all drank their same spiritual drink, for they were drunk spiritual." And then it says here, "Nevertheless, with most of them, God was not well pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness." Now, it was the NASB that had that convention of capitalizing or using small caps for Old Testament quotes. And if you go a little farther down, you'll see that here in verse 7. "The people sat down to eat and drink and stood up to play." See, they use the small caps here. But this here was an Old Testament quote, 10:4. Where was that at? And they were laid low, right? Well, that's not in all caps. So this Legacy Standard puts 10.4 into small, or 10.5, I'm sorry, into small caps, for they were struck down in the wilderness. And it's also kind of more accurately quoting the Old Testament. If you go and look up the reference for this, laid low and struck down, it's a nuance and meaning there, but where laid low may kind of convey being humbled as opposed to being destroyed. You know, when you look at the, when you read it as they were struck down in the wilderness, it sounds more like, conveys a more of the meaning of being destroyed. So, like I said, this was just a real quick and precise kind of explanation of some of the points I had made yesterday about the Legacy Standard Translation. And there are plenty of comparisons with this already out on the internet, and I'm not going to go and reiterate all those things because it's already been done a lot. But what I haven't really seen is somebody going along and kind of showing you some of the rather, benign or neutral changes, as opposed to some very nuanced meanings. And like I said, this has been my general experience with the LSB so far. There are some times, as in 1 Corinthians 10:5, where it appropriately capitalizes or uses small caps for the Old Testament, which is, I guess you could consider it a correction of the NASB 95. So you have those. Then you have the little subtle nuanced meanings, as in 2 James, which I showed you. And then you have the less meaningful changes, which was in 1 James, I think, as I showed you earlier. So the point is that that's been kind of my experience with the Legacy Standard Bible. So, as I said in the beginning, I love the NASB 95. I'm very used to it. I won't phase this out or get rid of it, because to me, all the LSB does is just slightly raise the bar, just by almost a meaningless hair. If I was about a year ago or 2 years ago in my studies, in my biblical study, I wouldn't even consider anything like that. But now that I'm trying to really dig down into the verses and really understand the meanings of certain things, I find that I want to have no shading on it. I want it as black and white as possible. And then try to use the context around it to give me the meaning. So I really like this. It's really cool. I think it does some little corrections and changes of this one. But like I said, it's you could consider it rather insignificant in many respects for the average person, I suppose. As I said, I hope you guys appreciate the extra info, and hope this will help you in your decision of which translations you might want to consider. So give this video a like and click subscribe. I'd appreciate it if you do, because it'll help me to grow this channel, and hopefully I can bring you more product reviews and better quality reviews, and hopefully I'll have more time to do editing and things like that. So hope you'll subscribe. Thanks for watching.